Good afternoon, you're watching PLZ Soccer live from the grassy slopes behind the Sir Chris Hoy Velodrome with Celtic Park behind us. We've just seen Celtic lose 2-0 to Rangers in the opening Old Firm game of the season. Don't forget, if you're tuning in on Facebook, YouTube or Twitter, to send us your thoughts. Anything you've got to say on the game, we'll read them out and pose them to Peter Martin, who was inside. Peter, what did you make of it?
Well, I thought Rangers were well worthy of the 2-0 win. I thought they could have won by more, to be perfectly honest with you. I thought Celtic were inept. There's no point in anybody trying to make excuses about the players that Celtic didn't have available. I think it should be all about what Rangers did have available and what they did on the park, because there's no doubt in my mind, Steven Gerrard looked at it, played three up front to occupy Celtic's three centre halves. Obviously, the young man Welsh is inexperienced. He didn't really contribute too much. He worked hard, he got the odd header in, but the three players for Rangers were a thorn in their side. They occupied them. It was an aggressive plan from Steven Gerrard, and I thought it worked well. The midfield worked so hard to make sure they were tight, and Celtic had no possibilities in really getting any dangerous balls into the box. I thought it was a composed, controlled performance by Rangers. And you've got to take into consideration, this is a Celtic side that an El Yunusi chance that he should have buried was really about their best opportunity. Lee Griffiths late on with a shot that eventually was easily saved by Alan McGregor. But it's all about what Rangers did in this match, and I thought they controlled it. I thought they looked composed. I thought they got the set-piece goal that I thought they would get, because quite simply Celtic give up chances. And from there, they just were quite happy to dominate. Good passing, good football, and Celtic just ran out of ideas.
Yeah, we'll bring you the managers in just a few minutes' time. Thank you very much for everyone that is already tuning in. It's very busy on here. Plenty of Rangers fans. Alan Fleming, we were terrific today and could have won by more. Let's keep going now. Colin Ferguson, easy for Rangers. Celtic happy just to get away with a 2-0 loss. Do you think it could have been more in the end, Peter?
Oh, absolutely. I thought Rangers could have scored, two or three others, on the basis that they could have picked Celtic off if they really wanted to. The fact that in the end he took Barker off and threw Ryan Jack on was just to say, look, we're going to sit in the 2-0 now. We've got this game. They are shot shy. They don't look as if they're going to harm us. And after listening to Steven Gerrard, he's very calm about it. We'll hear from Steven Gerrard shortly, but the gist of the entire interview was humility. It's 3 points, and there's a lot of work to do. It's early in the season. For Neil Lennon, I don't think he was making excuses about the players that were not on the park. I think he was more to the point that some players just were not up for this one today, and I find that alarming, because some Celtic players should have been good enough to handle the pressure of this game, to be able to take the fight to Rangers, but it was sadly lacking, and I thought Rangers 2-0 in the end was more than comfortable and well deserved by Steven Gerrard's side.
Yeah, we'll get on to Celtic in a minute, but I just want to focus on Rangers right now. There's no doubt that Steven Gerrard has improved Rangers since he's come in, but there have sometimes been questions about his tactics in the biggest games, especially against Celtic. Was that the best tactical performance you've seen from him as a manager?
Well, I'm sure he'll tell you that the best tactical performance was the League Cup, because they absolutely battered Celtic and somehow Celtic managed to win it. So, and let's not forget, last December, Rangers came to Celtic Park and again won the game by 2-1. The one thing that's a stonewall certainty, which Steven Gerrard would have been well aware of, is that Celtic are vulnerable at the heart of the defence. Whether they added Shane Duffy or not, they always give you chances. Julian not being there was a blow, but they had to get on with it. And Ayer, Duffy and Welsh, basically from the free kick, were caught ball watching, and there was Connor Golson, and the headers into the back of the net, and suddenly Rangers have a foothold on the game, and they were able to build on that. It was right into the middle of Celtic's defence, and that's where they lose key goals in big games, and it surfaced again here at Celtic Park, and from there on Rangers never looked back. So I thought in the end, apart from the set piece and of course the poacher's goal at the end from Rangers, during the game they just looked as if they were quite happy to take whatever Celtic were going to throw at them from the front, who worked really, really hard, and the midfield and the back line were compact. They didn't let Celtic play through them in the middle and out on the wing. I mean, Frimpong was poor. Laxalt was very difficult for him in his debut to even get any half-decent delivery into the box. I thought Rangers' back line was superb. The midfield cruised it, and the front three occupied Celtic. And I think that's the positives that Steven Gerrard has got to take from this. And he emphasised at the end of the game, listen, it's 3 points. There's a lot of work to do, early days, and I don't think either manager wants to be drawn on whether this is a marker for who's going to win the league.
Yeah, Willie McFadden, great tactics by Steven Gerrard. Lewis Russell here saying that's the easiest Rangers have had it in an Old Firm for years. I don't think he's wrong there. Niall Kane, man of the match, Connor Goldson, scored both goals. Who would have thought it? Just quickly, before we hear from Gerrard, I want to get your thoughts on both goals. Poor defending, or is it striker's instincts from Goldson? Well,
I think, listen, he got ahead of his man in the first goal, and fair play to Connor Goldson for that. That was magnificent. Steven Gerrard was very complimentary about Connor Goldson and his contribution. He said he's been a big fan since he arrived at Ibrox. The second one, again, was just a comedy of errors from Celtic, failing to clear the lines, and Goldson nips in again, and it's a poacher's goal. It's if it drops in the box and you're there, you take advantage of it. But it was no more than Rangers deserved, you know, regardless of the style of goals. Rangers deserve to win this match by some distance.
Goldson by name, Goldson by nature. OK, let's hear from Rangers manager Steven Gerrard.
I'm extremely happy with the outcome. Fantastic results. 3 important points. It's what we've come for. We give the players a game plan in a short space of time. It wasn't too much different to what we've been doing against this type of opposition, who were good. But the players have gone out and carried it out. A mature performance, a professional performance. We've been, you know, relatively quiet throughout the 90 minutes, considering what you normally face here. So the players deserve credit for the 3 points, for the result and the performance.
It's been 9 years since Rangers won the first Old Firm game of the season, 11 since they've won 2 in a row, and 25 since they've won 2 in a row at Celtic Park. All those dates will now say the 17th of October 2020. You asked Gerrard about the psychological boost it will give them. They're 4 points clear. Obviously, Celtic do have that game in hand. But in 2 weeks' time, Celtic will play that League Cup, that Cup semi-final against Aberdeen, which gives Rangers another game in the league. They could go 7 clear. How big an impact could that have on the title race? I know it's early, but how big could it be?
Well, listen, we are about to get the real test on Rangers psychologically, the mental strength of them. We are about to get a real test on whether they can go out and deliver after a big win at Celtic Park. That's the question that everybody will ask. There are Rangers fans up and down the country who've looked at that game and thought, Rangers boss Celtic. Now can they go and win the games on a cold midweek? You know, the likes of Hibs and Aberdeen, take points off of St Mirren, don't drop them against Hamilton. That's the key issue. I had a chat with Ryan Jack just moments ago as well, and he mentioned the fact that now the lessons learned, and they have to be learned from last year's collapse, they have to be learned from January onwards. All those mistakes that they made have to be eradicated, and now this is a Rangers side that have to show the consistency. Can they go 7 points clear? Can they build on it? And remember, can they build on it to a point where they've got a good gap going into the next Old Firm game, because that could be crucial. So I think from that point of view, all in all, the players know the lesson they've got to learn. They've got to prove it on the park. You can talk till you're blue in the face. They've got to do it on the park. And just a quick word I had with Gary McAllister after the game, and he said, we were composed. After we got the first goal, we then were well organised and everyone knew their job. And I think from that point of view, that gives you an insight into the mentality of not only Gary McAllister, but Steven Gerrard in this game. You know, there's no jumping about, there's no fanfare, there's no punching the air and looking into the TV camera now and saying, you know, yes, this is a win at Celtic. It's just a win. And I get a feeling now, I get a real sense from that Rangers performance that they mean business this season. And I haven't seen that in a long while.
Yeah, it was a stark contrast to the same result that happened here back in December. Steven Smith, Rangers are a better team and 2 is a let-off for Celtic. You talk about all of that, but do you make Rangers title favourites now?
Well, I'm not going to make Rangers title favourites because quite simply there are so many unanswered questions. Yes, it's 3 points. Yes, it's a good 4-point advantage. Now we have to actually see if they can eradicate the problems they had the last time. And of course, the other unknown in this is how does Celtic respond? Odsonne Edouard clearly was never going to make this game. Neil Lennon said he was keeping his cards close to his chest, but I think Edouard will miss Thursday's game in Europe, and I think beyond that you'll be hard pressed actually to see Edouard in the next couple of weeks, so they're going to have to get on with it. I was particularly surprised by the front line. Now he'll know his players better than anyone. Maybe Ayeti wasn't fit for the full 90, maybe Griffiths was one of those players who was always going to try and be an impact player, but for me Klimala looked as if he'd won a competition to play in an Old Firm game. He was absolutely useless. And El Yunusi, I'm sure he wasn't happy at getting taken off, but he should have scored the glaring opportunity he had in the first half. He launched it over the top of the bar when really he should have tried to force McGregor into a save. That was really Celtic's only chance. I mean, at Celtic Park, Rangers comfortable enough and a half chance for El Yunusi. That tells you the story.
Yeah, John Cusack, Gabby, quick mention to the ref. I think it's the first time, not any bad match-losing decisions. I thought he had a good game, John Beaton, yeah?
John Beaton had a good game because we expected him to have a good game. Remember, 99% of the people who watch our programme, whether it's on Twitter, Facebook or YouTube, they love their club, they're passionate, they're informed on football itself. It's just this 1% who want to cast aspersions on referees, their background and all that. We don't get into that nonsense. Quite simply, John Beaton is a good referee and he didn't really have anything to deal with today other than a wee bit of back chat here and there and the odd flick of the foot. But other than that, the referee had no impact on the outcome of this game. It was all about what Rangers did over the 90 minutes.
Yeah, just before we go on to Celtic, I want to talk about a few individual players. I thought Glenn Kamara was fantastic in the middle of the park. Watching from out here, he seemed to not. He was everywhere. He gave a lot of support as well early on in the game to Borna Barisic whenever Frimpong did break. And he was also getting forward, which is good to see Kamara. Sometimes he stays too far deep, but how did you see it from inside?
Yeah, I mean, remember, Glenn Kamara's £50,000. I mean, he's an absolute steal. So it was a composed performance from him. I thought the midfield, again, did everything simple. There was nothing that they were trying to do which was overly elaborate. Once they got the first goal, which they were always going to get a chance from a set piece. I mentioned to you at the start of the programme, Celtic's centre of defence is poor. Some of these players actually think they're better than they are, and there may be games where they're not tested from some of the teams in the Premiership, but they got a test today because Brandon Barker, I think, deserves a mention as well. Kent, Morelos, they kept him occupied. Morelos a little bit quiet, didn't really have any gilt-edged opportunities, but the tactics I think were spot on from Steven Gerrard. Get the first goal, just cement your place in the game and then build on it from there. I actually thought as the game went on, even after the second goal, I thought Celtic are there to be taken for a third and a fourth because they could have picked them off. But once he threw Ryan Jack on and took Barker off, that was a signal for me from Steven Gerrard to say, OK, close the doors, take the points, job done, we're on our way.
Yeah, there are Celtic fans on here that were worried it could have been 3 or 4. In the end, the headline statistic is that Celtic had no shots on target. At Celtic Park, it's almost unheard of. 2009 was the last time in the top flight that Celtic didn't have a shot. They had those 2 chances, half chances, you say. El Yunusi where he goes over, and then Griffiths where he rounds McGregor. But how big a concern is that for Neil Lennon? The lack of creativity in that team. We know there were players missing, but there was still plenty, millions of pounds. Klimala, £3 million on the park.
Well, that's a good point that Steven Gerrard highlighted. Listen, don't talk about players at Celtic that were not on the park. He highlighted the fact Klimala, £3.5 million. He was talking about, £5 million for Ayeti. The money they spent, £5 million on the goalkeeper. There's a lot of money, £16 million player that they got on loan from Southampton and El Yunusi. They had more than enough to be able to compete in this game, so there's no excuses, and I think Steven Gerrard was quick to emphasise that point, which is quite simply Celtic had more than enough quality to try and win this game, but they weren't good enough.
Yep, let's hear from Celtic manager Neil Lennon. Here's what he had to say.
Well, we give away poor goals, and that's in essence the game in a nutshell. Poor, really poor from a set play early on in the game, and so bitterly disappointed with that. And then we did okay, and we missed a great chance to equalise. and I thought we deserved to come in at least level at half time. Second goal's really poor, you know, the second face from a corner we haven't dealt with, and you know, one we didn't stop the cross, and two we didn't get first contact, and I felt that was the difference between the two teams. I thought Rangers defended crosses and defended the box better than us.
So Neil Lennon clearly not delighted, but he wasn't going fully out, you know, making any rash claims or anything like that. I wanted to talk to you about the back three as well. There weren't any glaring mistakes for Stephen Welsh or anything like that, but an interesting statistic: the three players with the most touches on the park were the three Celtic centre halves. And I know that you are keen for teams to play football, but sometimes it's just too slow around the back, too pedestrian.
Well, that's Celtic's problem at the moment. Not only can they not create from open play in big games like that when you need somebody with a trick, the back three, slow, methodical, one-paced, and then eventually when you get to that situation, and no harm to the young boy, I don't think this is a day for actually turning around and saying Stephen Welsh was the reason why Celtic lost this game. He was not the reason. It's just that Celtic's back line gives you opportunities, especially from set pieces, even with the height of Shane Duffy. They were caught napping. It was a goal from the centre of the penalty box where Connor Goldson nicked in with a header, and then trying to clear the lines for the second one, it's in the 6-yard area where Connor Goldson is able to capitalise. So they were ponderous, and when they're playing that ball along the back line, the game slows down, and it allowed Rangers to suddenly set the formation again. And they did it time and time again. And whether it was moving to the right, where Frimpong was totally ineffective, he could not get past Borna Barisic. And Laxalt on the left-hand side, you know, tried a couple of crosses, put a couple in there, but he could not get down that flank because the Celtic players were being occupied by a very competent, professional job done by each and every Rangers player.
Mm-hmm. Jock Hunter, senior Celtic fan, absolutely rubbish performance. Fiona Doherty, Rangers fan, Rangers year with the trophy emoji. There was a lot of crossing from deep, especially from looks out. Celtic had twice as many crosses as Rangers, even though they didn't have a shot on target, which just shows they're almost devoid of ideas. Can we get it in the box? Nothing really going on. What did you make of Duffy? Obviously, him and Goldson used to play together at Brighton for a short period of time. And when I have seen Celtic play this season, you see Duffy do this thing where he takes an extra yard when the ball's coming in, so he can come and attack the header, and that's why Goldson was onside. The man who was actually marking he was ahead of, but Duffy's thinking, I'll give myself an extra yard, plays him on and doesn't get there. What did you think of the Irishman's performance?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I was speaking to Gordon Greer, the former Scotland internationalist, who's a Brighton scout who was at the match. They obviously facilitated the loan of Shane Duffy to Celtic. Shane Duffy's getting used to Scottish football. The manager's been glowing in his praise of him over the last few weeks. Personally, I think once you allow him to have more than 3 or 4 seconds on the ball, he's prone to getting caught in possession, and he got caught a couple of times today. He's going to have to get used to the hustle and bustle of it. He's going to have to settle with a back three that suddenly gets itself organised and becomes tighter. It's not there at the moment, even with the addition of Shane Duffy. Julian, will he be back for the European game? I have my doubts. Neil Lennon expressed that he still has a problem, and I think they're going to have to go with what they have at the moment. Shane Duffy, for me, has got a wee bit more to deliver at the moment. I thought he'd get caught in the ball, and I also thought the back three were very ponderous and slow. But again, that's just one aspect of it. The whole of the Celtic performance was poor, not because they weren't at it. It was because Rangers were in their face and played the game and the game plan to the manager's exact plan. And in the end, they got 2 goals. Could have been more. And I don't think anybody should start highlighting anything that Celtic didn't do. It was more about what Rangers did do. And then Celtic were just chasing the game. And they became desperate at the end, starting to launch the ball. But I wouldn't like to have seen Klimala on the park. I thought he was totally and utterly ineffective in a big game like this. And I personally don't see what he's got to offer up front for Celtic. I think Ajeti will take time. Griffiths, he needs regular football. And Edouard, well, the big question now is, when is he going to be back?
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see with Edouard. They'll be desperate to get him back because it is a huge week for Celtic, as you say. AC Milan here on Thursday night in the opening Europa League group stage fixture before a trip to Aberdeen That's no easy task.
No, it's a big week for Celtic. I can see them obviously falling foul of the qualities of AC Milan as well. This could be a real test of Celtic's mentality and mental toughness over the course of the next month, because AC Milan will come here brimming with confidence, favourites to win it, and Celtic, I think, you only have to look back at Ferencváros to see the problems that are there. They haven't been eradicated with the arrival of Shane Duffy, and certainly now I think they've got major problems in the front line as well. The creativity, they might be able to create against the likes of a St Mirren, a Hamilton. They might have got a confidence boosting win against Hibernian. It was the best of the season, but before that, and this game today tells you that Neil Lennon has got a lot of work to do to try and drag this team back into it, to believe they can respond to the challenge. Right now, Rangers will have a night to celebrate, obviously at their own homes, the individual players, and they've got the day off tomorrow. So, rightly so, they've got a chance to enjoy the moment. And I think over the 90 minutes, they were well deserving of that. There are no excuses elsewhere for this one. This was a comprehensive good win for Rangers, and the players should enjoy the moment.
Kevin Hepburn, Rangers for the treble. He's very confident after that victory. You talk about the problems Celtic had up front, at the back. What about in goal? Vasilis Barkas, £5 million from the Greek side, AK Athens. Questionable for that first goal. Well,
questionable for the first goal, and the other worrying thing about it is he never comes for crosses. I mean, that's fine. I mean, I know Roughie will come back and say, well, wait a minute, he's got a guy at 6'4", and he's got Ayer there, and he's got a young guy in Welsh who obviously wants his centre halves to attack the ball, but I'm sorry, he needs to be a bit more dominant. He did not come for anything. I think I saw him come for a one cross in the second half. The jury's out for me on Barkas. I don't know if he's a good goalkeeper or not yet. He's made a couple of saves in a couple of matches, but you only have to look back. Celtic fans will look back and say Fraser Foster won them big games, the League Cup game. So quite simply, I think they'll look back and say, there's Fraser Foster kicking his heels now, not playing football. They wish he was up here. He's the type of player that might have produced a top draw save. I haven't seen one from Barkas yet.
No, I've not seen one either, and perhaps Forster would have saved that early header from Connor Goldson in the 90th minute. Another player we always have to speak about, Scott Brown. He was involved with a little bit of a tussle with Morelos in the first half. He couldn't really seem to control the game in the way that he often does.
No, but I don't want to highlight Scott Brown at all, because I think it's an easy target for a lot of people to say, oh, his legs have gone, he's not the player he once was. Scott Brown wasn't the problem today. I mean, in Cham, nice touches here and there. Did he impact the game? No. McGregor, neat and tidy, but couldn't get anything going. It sometimes was forced out wide because Rangers midfield was so dominant with them and able to control what they were doing. So I won't be making Scott Brown the target of any accusation that, he's the reason why Celtic lost the game. There were too many inept performances elsewhere in the park, and they'd no shots of note in the game, and I think that's the big problem for many Celtic fans looking at the game. Griffiths is coming on and they're thinking maybe a free kick, maybe a half chance that he might get. That's how desperate it was. They were hoping Griffiths was somehow going to salvage a point for them. That's desperation for me. Klimala, not good enough at the moment for Celtic. I don't think he's good enough, period. And then Ajeti still has to get up to speed again after picking up that slight hamstring strain up at McDermott Park. He came on as a sub, but he'll be lucky to get a 2-star in the newspaper star check tomorrow.
Yeah, it's the 0 shots on target. It's just so damning for Celtic, almost embarrassing at home. 11 years. You say that you've got to praise Rangers because they execute their game plan perfectly. Is there a question that perhaps Lennon could have changed it earlier when it went to 2? We did see him go to the 4 at the back with about 10 minutes to play, get Taylor and the youngster Turnbull on. Could he have done that earlier?
He may well have done it earlier. It would have made a blind bit of difference because Rangers were in control. Everything that Celtic did, Rangers were able to react to it. The midfield weren't trying to be extravagant in the way they were playing. They were keeping it nice, neat and tidy, and then when Rangers didn't have the ball, suddenly they dropped in and made it very difficult for Celtic to try and play through them. So whether it went 4-4-2, 4-3-2-1, any formation today wasn't working because Rangers produced the performance that was worthy of winning an Old Firm game. So I think all the plaudits go to Rangers. I think they can take great credit from the way they played. They were fully deserving of it. I must admit, yesterday I thought Celtic man for man had a chance to win this at home. I got it wrong. I was going to change my mind today when I saw the team, but I thought I'm going to stick with it. If you're going to get it in the neck, you might as well get it in the neck at an Old Firm game. But from the kick-off, Rangers were at it and they had a point to prove again. But the big lesson we're about to learn from Rangers is, can they kick on? Can they now, with 4 points of an advantage, kick on, put the pressure on Celtic, even with Celtic's game in hand? Can they kick on, not drop any stupid points, and then get ready for Celtic coming to Ibrox? And suddenly then, I think 10 in a row is in serious danger of slipping away from Celtic.
They'll be trying to keep the momentum going. Standard Liège away from home in Belgium on Thursday night in Europa League. We talk about that next Old Firm game. I think it's the 1st or 2nd of January. There will be no winter break, so it's just going to be so chock-a-block for these two sides, because they're going to have Europa League the whole way through. Another thing that is so important for Rangers is their squad depth now. You looked at that bench today. We spoke about it pre-game. That's probably the strongest bench we've seen from Rangers since whenever, the last decade, you know. So Rangers will be rotating midweek, likely. Can they keep it going? That's the big question. Do you see them being 7 points clear when it comes to that Old Firm?
Yep. Well, listen, that's a huge question. Who knows how they're going to react, how they're going to have learned their lessons from last January. I think the one thing you can say, though, is now Steven Gerrard and the backroom team with Gary McAllister have not only a starting 11 of quality, but they have substitutes that can come on and make a difference. When you've got a game which is dogged, they might be at a game against Livingston where suddenly they need a goal. Well, they've got players who are coming on, who are hungry, who are starting to believe in the manager. When we talk about the players like Ryan Fraser mentioning that the Scotland players believe in Steve Clarke and they want to play for him now, everybody wants to be a part of Steven Gerrard's side, especially after a performance like that. They want to be known as the team that stopped 10 in a row. They want to be known as the players that put Rangers back on top. The big question for Celtic is, can they respond? So many great questions in this one, but take nothing away from today. 90 minutes, it's all about what Rangers did on that park.
Right, just before we go, a few outrageous comments here. Gary Ferguson, Lennon must stay. We've got Scott here saying Lennon has to go if we want to win the 10. No tactics, no style. Surely that's over the top.
Well, listen, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't react to knee-jerk suggestions on managers have got to go and stay. It's one game. It's 3 points. The humility of Steven Gerrard was there for all to see at the end of the game. He was well aware of the need not to open his mouth and make any statements, about what Rangers are going to do. He's emphasised the fact it's a good 3 points. It's a 3 points against a side that is rippling with quality, that's spent a lot of money, and the players that were on the park for Celtic were not good enough to beat Rangers. So Rangers fans who have seen it all before, who've been over the course before, will celebrate the win. It's an isolated win, puts them in a good position. The big question now is, can they kick on? And the flip side for Celtic, suddenly some Celtic fans will be looking and thinking, there are a few players who haven't been able to step up to the plate, and there are a few players in that squad that are quite simply not good enough to play for Celtic. So those questions will be asked, and over the course of this week, believe me, across every broadcaster you can think of, the radio, the written press, they'll be analysing every player from both halves to see who's going to be the superstar, who's going to be the man who takes the fall. It's great stuff. We're going to be discussing it obviously on Monday again on the programme at 4 o'clock live on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. But it's great. We've got a race. We've got two teams that are going head to head. I think it's going to be a fine line. It could be 3, could be 6 points that determines this title. Whether that's going to be the Old Firm games or not, that's the key question. Can Rangers go to the smaller clubs and win convincingly, or just win and keep their noses in front?
Yes, well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much for joining us. All of your comments have been fantastic on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe as well. As Peter says, we'll be back throughout the week. We'll be talking about these games and the rest that are on at the moment across the Premiership. You can tune into our social media channels to keep up to date with all of that. But from us here, it's all for now. Glasgow is blue tonight, but have Rangers seized control of the title race? We'll have to wait and find out. Bye-bye.